Savannah.
And I'm Elysia.
Welcome to Burden of Proof.
Welcome.
Hi. How are you?
I'm wonderful. It's hot.
It's hot as
so
blazes in here.
Hot as blazes.
She wants to say it, but she won't. It's hot as balls.
It's hot as balls.
So I have several disclaimers to make about my case today.
All right.
Number one, I went and saw 5 Seconds of Summer in Atlanta 2 days ago. So ignore my raspy voice.
You don't sound bad. You sound fine.
I feel really phlegmy though, just because it's like...
I feel like that all the time. So you're good.
Yeah. I'll be having to take frequent water breaks because my throat feels like it's dying.
All right.
But we're here. We're having fun.
That's okay.
Secondly, this case is all over the place. It's become a bit of a myth on the internet. So it is so difficult to figure out what is real and what is a farce. So there's going to be several times where I'm like, I don't really know, but here are the two options and here's what I think.
Here's what people are saying.
Yeah, so that's where we are. Today we're doing The Boy in the Walls.
The Boy in the Walls.
The Boy in the Walls.
I bet he was hot as balls.
I have so many thoughts, but we're going to get into it. So we're going to start in late-ish 1986. Annie Andrews and her sister Jessica Andrews receive an anonymous phone call by a boy who says that he goes to school with her. He says that his name is Daniel Laplante. He describes himself as a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, hunky jock of a boy who plays football at their school. And he talks to both sisters for a while. And I think I want to make this very clear because I know that a lot of sources just talk about Annie being a victim. No. He tormented both of these sisters.
Oh.
Both of them.
Fun.
Both of them. So just because of you'll see what I'm talking about. Spoiler alert. Daniel Laplante is not a very kind person.
Oh, no. No, not the hunky football player.
Not the hunky football player. So anyway, they talked for a while and he and Annie started to really hit it off. She was about 15 or 16. Sources vary, of course. But I think she was closer to 16 and they agreed to go out on a date. However, when she met Daniel for the first time, she was very blindsided by what she saw. Instead of being greeted by
Yes, he is not a blonde, hunky football player.
He is not. He's quite literally the opposite of a blonde, hunky football player. She was met by a greasy haired brunette with dark eyes who just did not take care of himself. Like his personal hygiene was bad. So, you're 16 years old. What would you do if you'd been catfished at 16?
Ew.
Yeah, so she ended up
going... Run away, Annie.
She went on a date with him for about an hour. They went to get ice cream. And during this time, Daniel begins to ask her some really strange questions. Unfortunately, Annie and Jessica's mother had passed away earlier in the year of cancer. She had had a long battle and she finally died. So, she's grieving. She's not, she's getting through it. But Daniel had some interesting questions about her mom's passing and spent a good portion of the hour that they were together asking her about her mother's death and specifically whether or not she suffered. So that was really frustrating. So after about an hour, she figured out an excuse and she went home determined never to speak to him again.
Yeah.
She's like, ghosting, deuces.
Don't ask
sayonara.
Question. Daniel.
Did your mother suffer in her last moments?
Daniel.
Are you going to eat your coconut cream ice cream? Like, creepy boy.
Creepy boy.
Creepy boy.
No personal hygiene. No manners.
No manners. So she runs along home and she's determined she's never going to speak to him again.
That's what you think, Annie.
Unfortunately, that is not the case. So about a week later, Annie and her sister Jessica decide that they are going to try and do a seance to speak to their recently departed mother.
Oh.
Yeah. And I can't blame them because if I was 16 and my mother died, that is exactly what I would do. I cannot express how that is exactly what I would do. And I am the one who is always like, you have a ghost, I'll talk to it. Yeah. I'm going to a friend's house on Tuesday. She's a ghost. I said, well, I'll cleanse your house, but first I'm going to talk to it.
Yeah.
This would be me having a seance.
Doing your witchy nonsense.
My mother's never going to die. She's immortal, so we're never going to have this issue.
She's never allowed.
Never allowed to die. because my mom is amazing. But her and her sister had really no success in the middle of like during their seance, like the actual process. It wasn't until a few hours later when they were trying to go to bed that they started hearing some knocking on the walls.
Oh, no.
So they started communicating with this knocking, asking it questions, thinking that they're talking to their mother. This goes on for it's a few weeks, about 2 months.
Guys, I think the name gives it away. I think it might be the boy.
I had every intention of making this like really spooky, but I'm going to be honest with you. I have not been sleeping well because of this case.
Oh, no.
And so I'm going to keep it as real as possible so that other people can sleep.
Yes. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Side note, I had a friend stay over at our house last night. Cameron stayed at our house.
Oh.
I went to bed before he got there. I just texted, I said, here's the door code, come in. I get up to get some water. He comes around the corner and he's like, hello? I fell over in the kitchen. And he's like, are you okay? I'm like, you can't do that to me. I have a true crime podcast. You have no idea what I go through.
We are constantly researching terrible things.
I said, I thought you were Daniel Laplante. But you were in the walls. So yeah. So spoiler, it's not a ghost.
It's not a ghost.
So, and they thought it was for about 2 months until it just kept going all hours of the day and the night. And it wasn't like they were just talking to it anymore.
He never leave the walls?
He just kept knocking. And they just thought, maybe it's a demon. Maybe it's something horrible. What have we done? They've been lying to us. It's not actually our mom.
Take a sledgehammer to the wall. Well,
you don't know. It's not, they didn't think it was a person. They thought it was a ghost.
I'd have to prove it to myself.
Yeah. No,
knock on that, Mom. There's no
wall anymore. What you knocking on now? Yeah. So they tried to go to their dad, and their dad was like, I think that you're just grieving a little weird, because of course nothing was happening to Brian. Yeah. Brian Andrews thought that his daughters were just grieving.
Yeah.
So then things got a little different. Items began disappearing and reappearing in different locations. Now, I've had this happen with ghosts.
People report with
yes.
Ghosts, yeah.
Specifically, utensils for me, they're just gone. They just go missing. Water bottles will just go missing, or they'll reappear in a random place. This has happened. I understand why they thought this was a ghost.
Yeah.
But again, nothing was happening with Brian. And then one day, they came home and their bedroom furniture had been moved around.
Mom got strength.
Yeah. Mom was a weightlifter. Mom is doing spiritual deadlifts in
the afterlife.
And
I think my first question would be, if I was these girls, is why is nothing happening? Wouldn't Mom also haunt her husband?
Who'd been with her through this battle of cancer, and you'd think.
Like, my husband is the number one person that I'm going to haunt when I die.
Oh my gosh. No, Nicholas,
I'm going to mess with him so.
You know what?
So much.
On record, I think your husband is also the number one person that I would haunt if I was dead. Because watching him freak out would be hilarious.
Yes.
Yeah. I wouldn't haunt Nicholas. He'd be so sad.
Oh no. Yeah.
And he doesn't like ghosts. They freak him out. So I just feel like that would be so cruel.
I'd have to go hard at my husband, because he's quick to like try and dismiss. It's not that he doesn't believe in ghosts, but he thinks
he just moves on.
A lot of stuff that happens that people attribute to a possible ghost is really just, it can be debunked. Yeah. So
he says that until it starts happening to him.
And
then he's going to go crazy.
But like, I think it would take a lot for him to say. So I'd have to. I'm going to have to ghost really hard.
I think.
When I die.
I hope he does. He's going to listen to this, but he's going to know. But I'm just saying that one year on Halloween spooky time, I am going to ghost Matthew so hard. I'm going to ghost him. I'll figure it out. Anyway, I'm sorry. That was a tangent. And then, so that day that they freaked out, and their dad was like, y'all, there's nothing going on. Your mom is not here. She's dead.
How do you explain the furniture, Dad?
He thought they were doing it for attention.
Oh. Gotcha.
I mean, he wasn't being rude by any account. Right. He was just, he thought he worked a lot.
Yeah.
So he's a lawyer. He works a lot. and he thought they were just acting out for attention. Annie and Jessica started hearing a strange sound coming from their basement one day, and they decided they were going to go investigate. So that was a decision. They armed themselves with a kitchen knife and started walking down the stairs, where they found a bloody message on the wall that read, "I'm in your room, come find me."
I don't think it's Mom.
Where did Mom get blood?
The only thing Mom would write is like, clean up your room.
Empty the dishwasher.
I see you.
Quit texting
It's a
that
mess.
boy.
Stop doing that.
They ran screaming from the house, so at least they didn't go back up into her bedroom.
Yeah, really.
They ran to their neighbor's house and they called their father. Brian Andrews came home. He saw that the words in the basement were actually written in ketchup, not blood. He then sent his daughters to counseling for their grief, thinking that they were really just acting out for attention this time, and he didn't really know what else to do. He tried to talk to them, so they went to grief counseling. The noises began to die down for a little while, but then another message popped up in Annie's bedroom. This one read, "I'm back. Find me if you can." They fled the house, they called the neighbors, and Brian came home. As Brian entered the house, he was greeted by the source of strangeness his daughters had been experiencing for the past month. Several months, excuse me. It was like 3 months at this point. So this is where the story gets a little bit tricky, because the internet has really taken over with this. So I'm going to tell you what I think personally happened, and then I'm going to tell you the spooky story, and then we're going to get into why the two were so confusing to figure out later.
Okay.
So personally, what I think happened is that Brian entered the home and he noticed that there had been further disarray than his daughters claimed. And the neighbor, who had apparently probably peeked into the windows and saw.
Right.
The furniture was everywhere. There was stuff all over the walls and things were missing. So he walked up into Annie's room alone and saw an additional message that had been painted on the wall that said, "Marry me."
How romantic, Daniel.
Bro. Then on the other side of the room, Brian was greeted by an even more unnatural sight. A young boy dressed as a Native American with makeup on his face and a hatchet in his hand. And a wig, mind you.
Marry me.
I am dressed as a Native American woman and I have a weapon. Marry me.
Oh my.
So the marry me, I don't know if that third message was there. It's very difficult. There were a lot of minors in this case. A lot of those records are sealed. It's a little tricky.
Gotcha.
The other story, which I don't know if it has truth to it or not. There's no record. There's no public record as to exactly the events that went down in the house when they found Daniel. Because the girls are minors and Daniel was a minor when he was arrested.
Yeah.
And he was actually arrested in his home county where they charged him as a minor originally. So all of those records are sealed and they weren't passed along.
Right.
But the other story that is told, especially on the interwebs, is that Annie was in her room one evening. She was vibing. She was reading a 17 magazine.
That sounds right.
I don't know. What magazines were people reading in the 80s? It was 1987 or 86.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, it could have been like there was a Tiger something.
Teen Beat?
Like there was Teen Beat and there was a Tiger something or other.
Okay.
That always had like pictures of your heartthrobs that you could pull out and hang on your walls.
She was vibing.
She was vibing.
She opened her closet and saw Daniel Laplante dressed as her mother with a blonde wig and makeup, and some sources even say her wedding dress. Every source, however, says that he was wearing his mother's clothing.
Her mother's clothing.
Yes, her deceased mother's clothing.
Daniel.
That's
dude.
That's fucked up.
What are you doing?
So, yeah.
She doesn't want to marry her dead mother.
So then
he
apparently, and like I said, this is rumored, ties her up, gets the rest of her family and dispatches them and ties them and kidnaps them in Annie's bedroom while he ransacks the house. Annie then gets free, releases her family, and they, either chase him out or he was already gone.
This is unreal. This is like a movie.
I know. Yeah.
Crazy.
So, and it's even crazier because I felt like a crazy person trying to piece it all together.
Yeah.
So, based off of what I think, though, it was just Brian alone. He wrestled him a little bit, but Daniel got free, and he was there, and then he was gone. It was so fast. So, there was no sign of Daniel. Brian left to go be with his daughters and the neighbors. They called the police. When the police got there, they found no sign of Daniel, except there were lots of signs of Daniel. There was just no sign of like where he might be physically, but there was lots and lots of proof that he was there. In the basement near the washing machine, an officer noticed a small hole that had candy wrappers, soda, and beer cans, and they started looking. And all of a sudden, there were all these signs that they had missed, that Daniel Laplante had been living in their walls for several months. They opened it up and realized that he had been creating tunnels with strategically placed peepholes to watch over Annie and Jessica while he tormented them into believing that they were communicating with their deceased mother. They found him and arrested him at 17 and charged him as a minor in his home county.
Oh my gosh.
Wouldn't you just rethink everything you've done over 3 months and just been like, he was there the whole time?
Can you imagine how messed up that would make you?
Yeah.
That happening. Like, it's like people are traumatized from like finding out they were in a changing room someplace and somebody had a peephole or a camera or a restroom.
Especially when you're 16 and you're going through all of your puberty and your body's changing and you're like changing clothes in your bedroom and
to find out this is happening in my house.
Yeah.
Like, I'm never going to sleep again. We have to move. I have to watch them build the house.
Yeah. Exactly.
I must check all.
They, by all reports, they go back and live in the same house.
I don't think I could.
Yeah. So he's sent to juvie and he's charged with everything that he just did. But the charges are a little weird, and this is where it gets tricky as to what he was actually charged with, what he was arrested for, and what the story was.
Okay. Keep going.
Okay.
I'm listening.
Okay.
I have to turn off that ding. But I'm sure everyone
ding shame. Everybody point at her and laugh. So he was charged with and this is a culmination of sources, and I've just put all of them in one list so that we can try and piece it together.
Yeah.
4 counts of kidnapping, 4 counts of armed assault in a dwelling, breaking and entering, larceny, and malicious destruction of property.
Okay.
What? So the kidnapping would only occur if he had detained them.
Yeah.
But there's like 90, like, it's so confusing because probably 70% of the sources say that Brian went in and found him and that he hadn't kidnapped them.
Right.
But the other, it's so bizarre. And then
I found that with every case we've done or I've researched so far. Like, you find weird
discrepancies
that, and it can be something so simple that you're like, no, that's fact.
Mm-hmm.
Like, somebody's birth date is fact.
Exactly.
It's public record. How are other sources like saying otherwise? And you have to sort out the mess.
I don't know.
And it's tricky. So yeah, especially when records are sealed or...
Oh, and don't even get me started. We're getting ready to get into those records, babes, because this is rough. This gets rough. Listen, the police, by all accounts, did what they were supposed to do. Now, the judicial system kind of messed this one up. So he was detained and sent to juvenile prison from around January. In October, the jurisdiction battle between the two courts was finished. So he was arrested and charged in his home county where he lived. The crime actually occurred in a different county. So his home county charged him as a juvenile, and his crime county charged him as an adult. So when he was in juvie from January to October before the jurisdiction battle was finished and he was moved.
Okay.
There was a psych evaluation done, and he obviously had a juvenile record.
Spoiler, he's crazy.
Spoiler alert,
I don't want to make light of mental health issues. I apologize. I should not do that, but
it's okay. I
this
think
is
they
crazy,
know.
crazy.
I think they know. It's okay.
This is too much.
I
Crazy.
think they know. I can vouch for how seriously Elysia takes mental health. It's
Yes.
okay. They did nothing with his psychological evaluation. It was never, they never got it. And there was definitely records missing from his juvenile record. Couldn't figure out exactly if they had never gotten any of it, if they had only gotten some of it.
Weird.
It was very bizarre, but clearly they didn't do any sort of digging into his psych eval because they released him on a $100,000 bond to go back and live with his family until his court date in December.
Yeah, we've had that conversation about bond.
Oh, you know how I feel about bond, babes.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a break from that frustration because that pisses me off. I'm like, I can't, I don't understand why this boy had just tormented two teenage girls who still live there and you're releasing him.
To his family that obviously doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
He was living in their walls for 3 months. Where did they think Daniel was?
Even before he's living in their walls, his mom didn't teach him to wash up. So,
okay, so let's get into his early life because that's where we're going to go to next. Because obviously, this didn't come from a loving family. Nah.
They never do.
Yeah, normally no. So, unfortunately, he was not loved. He was very much tortured by his family. And tortured is the word that the sources use. It was really, really, really bad. He was physically, mentally, and sexually abused by his father. Some sources say by his stepfather as well, but I don't know for sure, especially given some of the later actions of his stepfather. And that's who he was released to. He was released to his mother and his stepfather, as well as his brother, Stephen. He was diagnosed with dyslexia when he was really young, and even from a very young age, his classmates thought he was very creepy. And that's the word they used.
Yeah.
They said creepy. He showed signs of a personality disorder and was reluctant to do any sort of personal hygiene as he grew. And at this point, I'm assuming his mother had remarried. Yeah. So he was abused by all of the above, physically, mentally, sexually, by his father. And then his mother's remarried. He refuses to do any sort of personal hygiene and was showing signs of issues. So his mother sent him to a psychiatrist.
Okay. Good to hear. She at least tried.
Yeah. He was diagnosed with hyperactive disorder. And then the psychiatrist began sexually abusing him for the next year. Oh my gosh. And he was a man. So that is two men who were supposed to care for Daniel in his life, who then abused him sexually. Not great.
I have no words.
It's so difficult.
I have no words. Because you know that at that point, he's probably never going to, even if his mom caught on and said, okay, I'm pulling you from here and let's go talk to somebody else. He's never going to talk. He's never going to trust another psychiatrist or psychologist.
Yeah. So at this point in his life, he began I hate this word. Burglarizing. He was breaking in and stealing crap.
Breaking and entering.
He was breaking into people's homes, sometimes stealing things, but then he really began to realize how much he liked mind games. So he would just break into people's houses and move stuff or take random stuff that had no value just to watch them freak out. All relatively close to his home.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He's got to sneak in and sneak out.
Yeah. During the day. And this is where people think that he got the Andrews phone number from. Because he said he got it from somebody at school. Nobody at school is talking to this dude. They've all said,
You're creepy.
You're creepy, and you don't smell very good. So
You don't. Did you? Oh, this was back in the 80s, too. I bet he was a kid that ate the paste. So, yeah. So, in case, it's been a few episodes since we've mentioned our age difference. But in my generation, growing up in the 80s, we did not just have Elmer's school glue. We had Elmer's school paste.
He ate that paste.
Thick. It was in a jar. And according to all the weird kids, it tasted really good.
Interesting. I bet he did eat the paste.
I bet he ate the paste.
Yes. Do you hear that?
That was me.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I thought it was a dog.
No, I shut them out pretty good.
Okay.
So I think
Sorry, we have to banish the dogs from the studio.
dogs. They'll be loud or
barky.
Get into
anyway,
things.
Yes. So like she said, we have an age difference.
Yes.
I love it. It makes life so much more interesting.
I teach you all the things, all the 80s things.
And I teach you slang. So here we are.
You keep me young.
I do. So that's where they think he got his phone number from, was from a burglary somewhere. Maybe they saw his phone number. I don't know. Who knows?
All right.
So obviously he was released in October, much to my chagrin, or my dismay, not my chagrin. I'm not happy. The other way around.
Other way.
I'm really tired. I've messed up several times. We're going to ignore them all.
It's okay. That makes life more exciting.
Yeah. He immediately starts burglarizing other homes. I did it that time.
Good job.
Thank you. He did this to many homes between October and December when his trial date was. So I am going to just give you some highlight reels. For example, on October 14th, very soon after.
Anniversary.
Aw. Well.
Okay, moving on. No one cares. Moving on.
He was breaking into the home of Raymond Pindle and his family. He stole 2 Ruger 22 caliber guns with their holsters and a sizable amount of cash. 3 weeks later, the defendant's stepfather, I'm sorry, can you tell I was reading the court documents? Daniel's stepfather found one of the guns and the holster in his laundry basket. He told them that he obtained it the year prior when they were questioning him about it. And then November 16th, between 11 a.m. and 3:30 p.m., because he's doing this during the day.
Aren't you supposed to be in school, Daniel?
Nope. Someone broke into I meant to Google how to for sure say this, because I've heard different people say it. Gustafson? I think that might be it. Gustafson. He broke into the Gustafson's family home. He stole their cordless phone, a cable box, maybe 2 cable boxes, kind of up for grabs, and a bunch of other random technology and crap. He put the cable box and the phone in his brother's tool cabinet. He told him it was to prevent the parents from seeing them. He stole some Liberty coins, some collectible coins, and Stephen also saw him with those coins a few weeks later.
So Stephen, the brother, sees that he's stealing stuff.
They don't know for sure that he's stealing it, but they should know at this point that something's a little off.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, he's lying to them about it, and who knows, man?
Tell you what. There's a whole lot of cases. Excuse me. Seems to be a whole lot of cases that seem like they could have been prevented or stopped at least earlier on if people would stop believing
the lies.
The lies. They're lying.
It is a farce. If you know what movie that's from. It's from The Village. Bryce Dallas Howard. She goes, "It is a farce."
It's a farce.
That's why I like that word so much. So then, a few weeks later, Brian asks his brother Stephen and their friend Mike Pawlowski. Yeah, I need to restart my system here. Pawlowski. For a bunch of 22 caliber bullets and told them that he wanted to make them into a giant bullet and sell it. So,
a giant bullet.
I don't know how bullets work, but don't think it's like that.
Don't you need a giant gun to shoot?
No, he was going to sell the giant bullet.
Well, I know, but
he doesn't have to have.
What good is a giant bullet?
He's going to sell it to someone with a giant gun. This is, I don't know. Oh, my Lord.
I don't think he's thinking this plan through.
Well, Mike bought it. And he gave him a bunch of 22 caliber bullets from a case that he had, and he gave the other half of the case to another friend.
Okay.
So then,
Mike.
Yes. Unfortunately, on December 1st, 1987, Daniel breaks back into the Gustafsons' home since he had previously stolen from them. It's during the day. Priscilla is at home. She's a preschool nursing room teacher. She was also pregnant. He pins her down and rapes her before pushing a pillow over her head and smothering her before shooting her twice. All while her 5-year-old son, Billy, was in the room.
Oh, no.
He then took Billy downstairs to the downstairs bathroom and drowned him. While he waited on their 7-year-old Abigail to get home from school, he opened a beer from their fridge, and then when she did get there, he took her to the upstairs bathroom and drowned her as well. And then he went home, and he went to a family birthday party. His niece turned 6 that day.
I have no words.
So it's just really
disturbing.
Yeah, and it is such an escalation as well.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows if maybe gone unchecked, he might have killed the Andrews family. But it's just bizarre. And if they hadn't released him on bond, he would not have killed 3 people.
Again, we don't like the bond.
I get really frustrated because it happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Gustafson was a lawyer as well, ironically. He works for a very large firm, and he had just had an amazing deal go through with a real estate deal that he was working on. He had tried to call his wife, but then decided he was just going to go home when she didn't answer to celebrate.
Surprise.
He walks in, and he's confused by the silence in the home. They have 2 young kids. It's really weird that it's quiet. He walks all the way upstairs and finds his wife covered in blood, dead in their bed. He immediately runs out because he just knew in his heart that his 2 children were dead, and he did not want to see them. He didn't want to go find them. And I'm so glad that he did not.
Yeah.
Because it really just saved him a lot of imagery, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, moment of silence for that, because I really don't have words. It's...
Yeah, I have no commentary.
I think that I've been researching this so heavily over the last, 4 days that I hadn't really processed how horrible that was until just now.
Yeah.
Because Daniel only lived about a half a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And I think the only reason that I'm processing it the way that I am is because my next case also involves children.
Oh,
and it's horrific.
Oh, kid cases are so hard.
Yeah.
Detectives then become, they start coming up with a list of possible suspects in this family massacre. Unsurprisingly, given his previous crimes against the Andrew family and the fact that he had just been released from the juvenile detention facility a few months ago, and there were all these burglaries happening, and he was kind of known for that, Daniel Laplante made the list. They went to the library where he was studying and asked him where he was the day before. He said that he had been wearing gray sweatpants and sitting at home watching TV all day until he went to his niece's birthday party at 6, or whatever time it was. She had just turned 6. They started doing some looking around the home. And the following day, on December 2nd, the police questioned Daniel and... Oh, no, I apologize. They questioned him on December 2nd, the second day. And then later that day, he went to the Laplante home to question him further. As they approached the home, Daniel was standing on the porch, and he jumped off the porch and ran into the woods, thus launching a massive, massive manhunt. It included 50 officers, a police helicopter, police dogs, detectives, the whole 9 yards. They were going to find him, and he was going to jail.
Yeah.
Because clearly he had something to hide. They used some just search dogs at the Gustafson's home, where he immediately picked up a scent of Daniel, followed it all the way from Daniel's house to the Gustafson home and back. So they had found a trail. They searched this trail and found a pair of wet gloves, the clothes that they knew belonged to Daniel, and a bunch of other incriminating things. While on the run, Daniel was not particularly careful about staying under the radar. He abducted a woman at gunpoint, making her drive him all the way around town in her Volkswagen van. Luckily, the woman jumped out of the car, fled on foot. She went to the police and reported her, and said that Daniel Laplante was now driving her Volkswagen van.
Which is, well, I mean, it was a little less conspicuous back then, but even in the 80s.
Exactly.
They weren't super popular at that point.
Mm-hmm. So there were several other incidents and other sightings of Daniel by the public. The police found him around 6:30 on December 3rd, hiding in a dumpster at a lumber yard in Ayer, Massachusetts, about 11 miles south of Townsend, where the murders occurred. Daniel was arrested without incident, but he's said to have been laughing hysterically, which officers found bewildering. I'm reading that as a direct quote because I found it in an article and I could not. He was just laughing.
How do you reword that.
They said it.
I mean,
they said it.
Yeah.
They searched him and found that he had a gun stuffed in his underwear. That seems real safe for the family jewels there, Daniel.
Well, the rest of us will be okay.
Yeah.
We feel more at peace.
Yep. So he was charged with the murders of Priscilla Abigail and William Gustafson. He received a range of charges, especially they added on everything they could for the crimes he committed while he was on the run.
Yeah.
So let's get into the trial and the charges a little bit, because there's a lot of physical evidence that links him to the murders, clearly, based off of the dogs and, this, that, and the other. They received a warrant pretty quickly, and they went into his house and found several things that belonged to the Gustafsons. And they also saw more wet clothing and the sweatpants that he said he was wearing the day before, etc., etc. They also used blood analysis to determine what kind of secretor he was. Have you done research on this before?
I have not.
So there are different kinds of bodily fluid secretors. Everybody's a different type.
I hate that word.
And so he's a type A secretor, and they were able to use the semen that he left on the bedspread after raping Priscilla to match it to a blood sample of his that he was also a type A secretor. You should really look into it. It's fascinating. I don't feel qualified to talk about it right now.
I will look into it, even though I hate that word.
Secretor.
So,
what type of secretor are you?
I don't want to know.
Dating app, but it's based on the type of secretor you are.
Ew.
They also found different fibers that linked him to different aspects of the crime scene. They found this everywhere. There's like 5 different accounts of it matching in different places. Daniel, between his shirt and the fibers of the bed, and then his gloves and the fibers of the bed. It was everywhere. And the pair of gloves that they found during the manhunt also had gunshot residue of the second gun that he stole from the Raymond household. Also, if you hadn't picked that up, I apologize, I didn't say that. He used one of the guns from Raymond Pindle's house that he stole, and the 22 caliber bullets that Michael Pawlowski gave him to kill his family.
Really,
I'm sorry. It's just I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I can't.
It's okay.
I told
he probably doesn't really want his name out there anyway.
Listen, we're getting to him.
Oh boy.
His brother Stephen found the gun the second gun was the one that was in his underwear. The one that he used to shoot Priscilla was found in a beater car they had on their property, and Stephen found it in the glove compartment of that Jeep Cherokee and turned it in. Ballistics proved that was the gun that he used. So he had stashed it before he started running and taken the second one with him on his run. So he was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences at 17 years old in the state of Massachusetts.
Good.
You know what comes next.
Appeals.
Now, when he appealed, he was an adult, so I could find all of this fun stuff, which actually led to a lot more information about the trial. So honestly, most of the stuff I know about the physical evidence they had comes from his appeal, the judge's opinion of the appeal. Also, Sarge, the woman I was sitting next to on my plane yesterday as I was writing graphic notes about semen.
Did you lean over and go, what kind of secretor are you?
I should have. But no, I could tell she was looking at me funny. She was definitely reading over my shoulder. Sorry about that. Should have been on a different flight from Atlanta. I'm sorry. His appeal was interesting. It was mostly garbage, but it was interesting. I always think it's fun what they try and argue, and he had some different options. So he tried to use the fruit of poisonous tree doctrine. Do you remember this from school?
Vaguely, yes.
So if I'm remembering correctly, it is essentially, boiling this down a lot. If they get evidence in a negative way or an illegal way, then that is fruit from a poisonous tree. You can't use it, throw it out. So he argued a motion to suppress evidence found during the allegedly unlawful carrying out of the warrant that they received. He said that the warrant said that they were a single-family home and it was a multi-family home, and therefore they did not know what belonged to him and what belonged to other people, and the warrant was incorrect and he needed to throw everything out. The judge said, no. The police officers had done everything they could to write that warrant out to the best of their abilities. There was one gas line, one garbage can, one mailbox, one everything. There was literally nothing about this home that indicated more than one family lived there.
That's how my home is.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you have a 2-family home. You have a family and a best friend home.
A family and a best friend home.
So, they were basically like, nice try, but no. But I did think that was interesting. That was a long shot that they tried.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to. Like I said, some of these poor defense. I'm like the only person in the world that would say poor defense attorneys.
Yeah.
But.
No, I think you might. I don't agree. I could never.
I know. But it's like our legal intern at work says. Her reasoning for wanting to be a defense attorney is, I believe, how most people at least start out. Like, they have genuinely good reason for becoming a defense attorney, just believing that, in the legal system and that everybody deserves a fair trial.
Yep. Go watch The Staircase.
The only reason I say poor defense attorneys is that they oftentimes are handed a flaming pile of poo.
Yeah.
To try and
I will say,
with
he did come up with some interesting stuff. It wasn't the normal retrial stuff. So then going back to Mike Pawlowski. Spelled Pawlowski.
Maybe. I don't know.
More proof that I should have Googled pronunciations before I sat down.
You know who you are, Mike.
Yeah, Mike. I've written your name out a million times. Never once said it out loud until today.
There we go.
They brought him back up. Not really sure why. The only thing I can come up with is that they're basically claiming that they were arguing his proof of an alibi. And I'm thinking that they're saying that proof that his alibi was wrong would be proof of reasonable doubt, and so they would need a retrial.
Right.
It's the only thing I can come up with. Basically, Mike had an alibi. He was at work when the crimes were committed because it was committed during the day. He had a job. He worked in construction. He was laying a foundation at the time.
Yeah.
The reason they were arguing, though, was because they provided, during the original trial, they provided his timestamp and his time card. That said he was at work. However, the judge asked the company for an invoice for the job he was on because he could have been working, but where was he working? Where was he? What was he doing?
I mean, you could clock in and then leave.
Yeah, exactly.
Come back.
Exactly.
It's not like that's...
So the company was a really well-known construction company, and they actually didn't have record of the invoice. But everybody said, no, we did it. I promise we did it. Everyone was claiming this was our job. Both parties that were involved in this contract said this was it. But there was no invoice record. For some reason, it had just gotten lost. And the judge says, well, you're a really reliable company. Presumable reliability is a thing in the law field. And that's what he was citing. He was citing presumable reliability, that we can presume this person is reliable because of their history. So he accepted it. And he said, okay, you've been dismissed. You have an alibi. You were at work. So that's what they were arguing. And the judge was like, no. And he cited several different sources where presumable reliability was used. And like I said, everybody said that he was at work, and his supervisor even said it was overtime, and I had to approve it.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, Daniel.
No wall living for you, except if you're living in cinder block because you're in a jail.
Yeah.
And normally, like every appeal, there's 17 different points. I only am going to list 3 because the rest of them were so incredibly stupid. It's not worth it. But the third one, which I actually thought was kind of interesting, was that the judge failed to instruct the jury on criminal responsibility or the insanity defense. Ooh. So he didn't tell them anything about this because I don't know why. And they were like, hey, if you had instructed them on what that looks like in the law field, we might have had a different outcome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pop over to my notes. Give me just a moment because I did think that the way that he wrote this was interesting and I have to find it. Hold on. Because this was also, can I just say, this judge's opinion was the most unorganized thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh boy.
Everything was in weird orders. I had to copy and paste and move stuff around for it to be in the same, it was stupid.
Makes sense. Yeah. I felt like I had a professor like that.
Yeah.
Kind of Seemingly absent-minded, but she's genius at the same time.
Yeah. So the defendant, Daniel, states that the, quote, bizarre nature of these killings together with the events following their commission were sufficient enough to create a reasonable doubt as to the defendant's criminal responsibility. He was trying to say, the fact that I committed these crimes at all should tell you there's room here for me to be listed as insane.
Yeah.
He said that this required instruction to be given to the jury. However, the appeal group basically just said, we do not agree. The defendant relies on the case in which we said the very facts of a crime themselves might be some evidence to the existence of legal insanity, which was Commonwealth versus Madison in 1979. However, they then go on to cite like 9 different cases in which similar things happened, and they were like, they didn't have to instruct because taking even a liberal approach to the submission of the insanity issue to the jury, there was simply no triggering evidence in this case sufficient to require such instruction. The defendant has not pointed to, nor can we find, any case where the inexplicableness of a crime alone raises a jury issue of insanity. So they're saying, I don't know what cases he's citing because that's not what those say. That's like, they're basically saying, what the cases you're citing, that's not what happened.
Yeah.
You lie. Not true.
Sorry. Not gonna fool me.
Yeah. He said that the crimes were heinous would not alone support any conclusion that they were the product of an insane mind. So it also, to me, it seems like an escalation, but like he was already doing crimes and stalking and tormenting people.
Yeah.
Look at BTK. He would stalk people and then he would kill people. He stalked people and then killed an entire family. Like, this isn't a bizarre situation.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And again, it always comes back to what we want to consider insane
versus the legal definition.
The legal definition
exactly.
Of insane. And
there was no reason for him to be listed as legally insane ever.
I think that's just human nature. We want to believe that, like, oh, if somebody must be like completely out of their mind. But unfortunately, these personality disorders, they know right from wrong.
Yes.
Like on the Soul case,
yes.
He knew what he was doing was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
He was apologizing to people as he's doing this.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Are they sane enough to understand that what they're doing is wrong?
Exactly.
And the vast majority of people are. There's very few people that have lost their minds so far, have such psychosis that they don't know what they're doing or they don't understand why it's wrong.
The few cases that I've researched where defense attorneys said, no, I will not argue an insanity defense for you, are the better defense attorneys because they know how hard it is to prove that. Yeah. They truly understand it.
Absolutely. I agree.
You know, I mean, mental health is one thing, but like knowing that that's the thing, you know. I don't know. You explained it. I don't know. I feel like I didn't explain that very well, but I hope you understood what I meant.
I did.
Okay, cool. The other thing was, I just want to reiterate that everything was happening within like a mile of his home. Yeah. The Pindle house was less than a quarter mile from his home. The Gustafsons' home was less than half a mile away from their home. The Andrews family was really close. It was a different county, but still super close.
Howdy, neighbor.
Mm-hmm. So I have 2 more little sections here to go over.
Okay.
1, he is the main perpetrator of a appeal to the court system, claiming that their freedom of religion is not being honored in the jail that they're in because they will not allow them certain things for Wiccan rituals. So, let's get into this a little bit. There is a known heavy presence of Wiccans within this court or within this jail. I'm not sure where he is. Hold on. The U.S. District Court. MCI Norfolk Jail is where he's currently serving. And they're basically claiming that we need all this stuff to practice. And then people...
We're not going to let you burn down the jail.
No. He wanted different oils and a carrot cake. And
I think he just threw that in for good measure.
I used to work at a metaphysical shop.
Yes.
I don't know why you need a carrot cake.
What is a carrot cake?
I don't know why you need a carrot cake. He listed like 30 different oils and things that they would need to practice, including dragon's blood, black opium, and honeysuckle. He also said that they should be allowed to be outside during various cycles of the moon that are recognized by Wiccans. And then they talked to many different experts of the field who all said, no, not really. He wanted to have more than a dozen robes and medallions of different things to be provided to them. And they said, no, don't really need that. This was his reasoning on the carrot cake.
I would not sleep tonight.
No, I know why he wanted the carrot cake. I don't know what in the world made him think that he was going to get a carrot cake. Like, I don't understand. I really don't. Like I said, I don't know in what circumstance you would ever need a carrot cake. But he says that the cakes are used during certain Wiccan sermons, which is not a phrase I've ever heard before, to excite the senses, quote. But the cake that is served, they are provided a cake for these. They are already given a cake, but it's not the right cake.
But it's not a carrot.
He said the cake that they're served by the DOC is, quote, always the same, and it creates a somber environment during worship. He requested a different cake each month, including a carrot cake.
Okay, so the request was actually, can we change up the cake, guys?
But like specifically only named a carrot cake.
But it's just his favorite.
Yeah, exactly.
Why can't the
also,
man get his
psychopath for your favorite cake being a carrot cake? Calling you out. I don't trust you.
I mean, it depends on the carrot cake. But no, definitely not my favorite
cake.
Why
is there a carrot in my cake? No, cakes are sweet. No.
Carrots are a sweet vegetable.
But they're a vegetable.
Why
is it in my cake?
I don't know.
You know how I feel about in between things.
How do you feel? That's true.
I don't like this.
So you hate zucchini bread too?
I don't eat bread, first of all.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Second.
Well, sweetbreads are almost cake-like.
And see, that's where I get annoyed. Because like cinnamon buns, I want to like it so bad, but I can't. It's bread. I have OCD. And so part of that for me is like I don't like in-between foods. So carrot cake, not happening. Is it a vegetable or is it cake? It's both and I don't like it. What is soup? Is it food or is it a drink? I can't do it. I'm sorry. So now you kind of know why this is an argument. Not an argument, but I feel very passionately.
I just love to bring it up because it's hilarious hearing. I love
my reasonings for things.
I mean, I feel sad for you that you miss out on very tasty foods.
That's okay. I'm not pressed.
But I know.
I'm not concerned.
I
know what I like and what I don't like.
Yeah.
Vaughn Thompson, who's a practicing pagan in the Boston area, said that Laplante doesn't need any of these items to be an active member of the Wiccan community. I'm reading this from Boston Magazine, which is a local subscription. He says, quote, we get so much misinformation about our religion and our practices that even a hint of anything out of the ordinary associated with Wicca gets blown out of proportion. It's difficult to be Wiccan or pagan. Not only is our religion misunderstood, those misunderstandings also attract more than our fair share of crazy people. So that's how pagans and Wiccans feel about Daniel Laplante. So he goes on to say, the funny thing is, I think if this man were on the outside, he would be very disappointed in most pagan circles. We have one, maybe two pieces of ritual jewelry among the group, and most of those aren't even recognizable as Wiccan symbols. Most of the time we wear street clothes, we serve gluten-free cookies and organic apple juice for things like our cake and ale, quote unquote. We're just not that exciting. So, you know.
Not everybody can afford to have 12 capes, cloaks,
12 cloaks, robes, whatever.
Whatever it is you're looking for, Daniel.
I'm just going to say, Daniel, you acting a fool. So recently, Daniel Laplante was in the news because the Supreme Court in Massachusetts decided that there was going to have to be different sentencing for people who were sentenced as minors because their reasoning was that because their brains hadn't fully developed, they could be more easily rehabilitated. So they wanted to re-sentence people who had been sentenced as minors. So he had a hearing, basically. I'm not sure if it was a complete full trial or if it was a hearing based on his sentencing. Yeah. And they haven't re-sentenced him yet, as far as I could tell. So that was interesting.
But he was
17 when he was sentenced.
17. And this was in the
Mm-hmm.
late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So if he was going to need to be rehabilitated, it probably needed to take place before now.
So we'll see. I don't know how they're going to end up doing it, but experts are saying that there probably isn't going to be any sort of change in his sentencing.
Yeah.
He's arguing that he shouldn't have to serve consecutive life sentences. So he's thinking that he can just, at this point, by that term, he would be out by now. He could leave if they aren't consecutive, which is weird. I've never understood that.
I don't, yeah.
Because 3 consecutive life sentences means that he can't have parole. So if he serves 3 non-consecutive life sentences, he would have been eligible for parole and he would be free to go, essentially. But his family got to speak at this hearing, and he did not look at them when he apologized. He looked at the judge. Also, during his original trial, there's like pictures of him smirking, and I really hate him.
It's that personality disorder.
It really is. But I did want to kind of touch on a happier note. Unfortunately, Andy Gustafsson has passed away. He had cancer, but he did live a pretty happy life after it wasn't happy, after his family died.
Of course, but after you grieve.
Yeah, exactly. But he did remarry, and he found love with another widow who he went to church with, and she actually spoke at the hearing. So Andy Gustafsson was known for wearing 2 wedding bands at all times, one for his current wife and one for his deceased wife. And his wife did the same. They both wore 2 sets of wedding bands.
See, like I say all the time,
mm-hmm.
I always wonder how people who are widowed remarry, but unless you find another widow, because then you understand nobody's going to have hurt feelings over the fact that I still love my first spouse. It's just they were taken from me, and I have love for you too. But
it made me cry. They were very happy together. They tried really hard. I'm not sure if they ended up adopting. They wanted to adopt and create a family that they had both felt like they lost.
Yeah.
That Andy felt like he lost more specifically. I don't remember or know off the top of my head if they did ever get to do this, but either way, she spoke at his hearing, at Daniel's hearing. She spoke to his grief and to the fact that it weighed on him so heavily what he'd done and that these crimes would not be forgiven, essentially.
Yeah.
Then Priscilla's sister and Priscilla's brother spoke. Her sister is very angry, as she should be, and she will not see that he will ever be out of prison. She will not rest. I'm telling you, this woman is relentless, and she should be, and I love her.
Yeah.
Her brother is a minister or a pastor, and he spoke, and he said that he forgives Daniel, but forgiveness is a spiritual thing.
Exactly.
And that while he can forgive him, it does not mean that the slate is wiped clean and that he should be walking free. No. He says that it's their responsibility as the family to make sure that the people of Massachusetts are safe from Daniel Laplante and that he stays in prison.
Agreed.
So, also, he's bald now, so Daniel Laplante is bald. That's what happens.
That's what happens when you lie about being a blonde.
Yeah, you lose your hair.
Football player.
Yeah.
You lose your hair.
Mm-hmm. So.
Sometimes you lose your hair when you are a blonde, hunky football player.
But those guys usually turn out hot, so it's fine. He didn't bald well. He bald poorly.
I don't know.
I'm trying, man.
I don't know where all the hunky... I don't know. I was never into football players, so...
I don't know.
I don't know where they are now. All those football players I went to school with. Don't know.
Don't know either.
So...
Never cared for him.
Well, that was a very good spooky story.
I really wanted to make it spookier, but honestly, I don't want people to not sleep.
Yeah, no.
Maybe we'll do a retelling in October and just be like, ooh, there was knocking on the walls. He was dressed in her wedding dress and holding a hatchet. Boom. So, yeah. Daniel Laplante, you've kept me up for 3 nights. I'm happy to put you to rest.
Bye, Daniel.
Bye, Daniel. Thanks for joining me.
Yes. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Yes.
All right.
Have a good day. Till next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, guys. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at Burden of Proof Pod and email us at burdenofproofpod@gmail.com.